eventually we're going to get to Exodus chapter 7, verses 14 through 20 something. So anybody who wants to follow along as I'm kind of telling the opening story, Exodus chapter 7, we're going to start in verse 8. So we're all driving along the road, and as you can see by the amount of crazy kids that we have in here, they ask you a million different times, how much longer till we get there? How much longer? How much longer? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And what's our answer? Generally, our favorite family answer is 5 more minutes, Bryce. 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. And then you keep driving. We don't really know if it's 5 minutes. But then we see that sign. And that sign either reaffirms, all right, good, it's closer than 5 minutes, or, oh, crap, we got a long ways to go still. So, that just a small story that way. And then another story before we lead into this. I don't know if it's true or not true. A truck driver was driving down the road and he got stuck underneath a bridge. It turned into a big to-do. There was lots and lots of people staring, police officers going by, and then a little boy about Matthew's age stood over the bridge. And he looked at the police officer and he said, I know exactly what we can do to get that truck out. And so the police officer was, admittedly he was a little bit frustrated. Kind of like there's been times where you're in the middle of something and your kids are like, all you have to do is this, it's that simple. Or like, no it's not. And then you look at him like, oh crap, you were right. Hey, good job, buddy. So this little boy said, the police officer looked at the little boy again and was like, well, what do I have to do? He goes, just let a little bit of air out of the tires. So the little boy said to the police officer, just let a little bit of air out of the tires and then the truck will be able to get underneath. So the cop almost was like, well, what else do we do? So he did exactly that. He let a little air out of the tires, and guess what happened? That truck was able to make it out. So that kind of leads into our text a little bit here, is that, little signs, they can kind of come from anywhere. And it's our job, we have to listen to those signs in order to hear God. So let's dive into the text. A little bit of pretext before we get to verses 14 through 25. God was trying to get Pharaoh's attention, and he was doing it by using Moses and Aaron to act as essentially prophets, but Pharaoh's heart remained hardened. And so God basically said to Moses, I'm going to put you on the same level by being a Pharaoh, which is basically like being God for the sake of, that's the only way that this guy's going to get my attention. And so he did that, and Pharaoh still didn't listen. But Moses had one simple job, and that was to try to get Pharaoh to listen in order to get the slaves, get God's people out of slavery. So that's kind of the pretext diving in. It says, Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. He refused to let people go. Go to Pharaoh in the morning as he is going out to the water. Stand on the bank of the Nile to meet him, and take in your hand the staff turned into a serpent. And you shall say to him, The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, sent you to me, saying, Let my people go, and they may serve me in the wilderness. But so far you have not obeyed. Thus says the Lord, By this you shall know that I am the Lord. Behold, with the staff that is in my hand, I will strike the water that's in the Nile, and it shall turn into blood. So let's stop there for a second. God's clearly giving a sign there. We missed the previous sign in the previous chapter where God allowed Aaron to turn a staff into a snake, and it still didn't do anything to Pharaoh. So God's saying here, it says, by this you shall know that I'm Lord. So basically, if you see that sign coming, you're going to know where you're going. The fish in the Nile shall die, and the Nile will stink, and the Egyptians will grow weary of drinking water from the Nile. And the Lord said to Moses, Say to Aaron, Take your staff, stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over their rivers, their canals, their ponds, and all the pools of water, so they may become blood, and there shall be blood throughout all of the lands of Egypt, even in the vessels of wood and the vessels of stone. So a few more verses to go, and we're not looking pretty good, right? We're turning water into blood, and it stinks, and everything's going crazy. God is literally saying to Pharaoh, I don't know what else you want me to do to see the signs of this. So Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded. In the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, he lifted up the staff and struck the water in the Nile, and the water turned into blood, and the fish in the Nile died, and it stank. So the Egyptians couldn't drink the water. There was blood throughout the land, but the magicians of Egypt, this is a huge point to this here. The magicians of Egypt did the same by the... The quietest girl in the room today, even. I'm sorry. The magicians of Egypt did the same by their secret arts. So the Pharaoh's heart remained hardened, and he wouldn't listen, as the Lord said. Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and did not take even this to heart. And the Egyptians dug a hole to drink, but there was nothing. 7 days passed after the Lord struck them out. 7 days. So what happened there? God offered a sign, Pharaoh didn't listen. Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he didn't see. So what happened? These magicians came along, and they were trying to trick Pharaoh into thinking, like, see, I can turn this into that too. So that's not God answering. That's not this. That's not that. So here's the thing. If we look at Jeremiah 29:13, it says, God can be sought and found when we seek Him wholeheartedly. When we seek Him wholeheartedly. That's the huge point of all this. You can't seek and find God. You can't see the signs of God if you're not seeking Him with your whole heart. And that goes for really kind of any points for life right now, because we all question and we wonder what's going on. But here's what I want to tell you. If God brought us this far, He can take you from where you are to where you ought to be. He can take you from where you are right now to where you ought to be. But we just have to be able to see the signs. Just like when you're driving, we start at a point A. And if we read the map right, aka in this case our Bible, we can go from where we are to where we ought to be. But we need to have our hearts open and actually listen to God. God is constantly giving us signs throughout the Bible. And just throughout here, but we just need to be able to slow down and listen to Him. Second point. Sorry, I've got babies all over the place today. Sometimes the greatest thing God can do isn't to give us something new, but remind us what we already have. Sometimes the greatest thing God can do isn't to give us something new, but remind us what we already have. That point for me hits home pretty deep. So, God wasn't giving Pharaoh anything new. He was just reminding them of things that He already had. And that's what we need to realize as we're going through, different trials in our life. What do we talked about earlier? Like, we're praying, we're on our knees, and we're like, God, just give me a sign. Give me a sign. Why isn't this working? What's going on? I need something new. Well, maybe it's because God's saying you don't need something new right now. You need to be grateful for what you have and what you've got. And if I can just share personally for a minute, it's kind of helping for me. I've been, thinking like, oh, you guys have heard before, like, with the program that I'm in for work, I'm thinking, I should be elsewhere, I should be doing elsewhere, I should do something different, and it hasn't happened yet. Well, maybe it's because He's not done where we're at. And we just need to realize that and open our hearts to the fact that God's always got the plan for us, and at the right time, the right thing's going to happen. Just like if the sign says, for Hunter, McDonald's is 5 minutes away, in 5 miles, you're going to pull in, you're going to see those golden arches, and you're going to get that Happy Meal with no pickles on it. Right? But sometimes you just have to wait. And, hang on a second, because this is like... Okay, alright, regroup. So, in order to see what we've got, this is a huge part. We've got to slow down and really just be able to enjoy these little distractions, these little laughters, and enjoy them for what they are. Because God's got us where we need to be. What do I mean by that? As I'm talking about seeing signs and everything, over this past week there's been 2 famous people that have committed suicide. So, because they're famous, the attention's been brought to it more. Anthony Bourdain and some other designer girl. Kate. So, because of that, fortunately, it's brought more attention to this idea of suicide. The rate of suicide, do you know how much it's increased in America in the past 2 years? 30%. 30% the suicide rate's gone up. Why? Because I think people aren't looking and slowing down. What can we do to help? We could sit there and see a sign, the sign that, is right in front of us, that big flashing sign, and say, hey, what's going on? We don't want to. Sometimes they hide it, sure, but if we just slow down a little bit longer, we can see that sign that's right in front of us, but we get so focused on that final destination that we forget sometimes we're driving down the highway that God has detours that we need to go through. We'll put theories aside for a minute on that one, right? So here's what I want to propose. The greatest thing we can ask God is not to give us the opportunity, but to show our current obligations as opportunities. And I just kind of talked about that at that point. But rather than always just say, God, show me a new opportunity, say, use me right where I am. We're driving down the road. What can we make of this? Sometimes, as we're talking about signs here, sorry, I know I'm all over the place, but sometimes we're talking about signs from God. It's funny because He can give us the most physical signs in the world, and it's just up to us to listen to them. But this is where you have to have your heart open and know that it's really from God. Where does that come from? For me personally, 2 stories. One, I was at the new plant for 5 years. I talk about this time and time again, but I was unhappy for probably a solid 3 out of the 5 years, but didn't really want to leave. What happened? We get an announcement that the plant's going to close. So, long story short, it remained open, yes. But in my eyes, I took it as constantly praying. That was a sign saying, Travis, this is not your future. I'm literally closing the door for you to start a new career. Sometimes God's signs are that simple. Another story, when I was getting ready to leave the new plant, I was interviewing for jobs. Most of you probably know I work at the House of Good Shepherd. The program itself is based in Utica, but I'm in the Watertown office. As I interviewed, I kid you not, the very next night, or that very same night, I went home, and Melanie and I were kind of talking over, like, what are we going to do? We're watching The Voice, and what comes on the TV, guys? But someone from the House of the Good Shepherd in Utica, New York. He made it on the show, but it was the music teacher from there, and happened to be on TV that very same day. It's kind of getting goosebumps talking about it right now. But when you open your heart to God and you really say, God, what do you want me to do? And you're just constantly discerning, God, what's next for me? Sometimes the signs are actual signs. Sometimes the signs are saying, you're not there yet, keep going. How many people like that sign when you want an answer right now and God says to you, man, we're not ready for it yet. Just keep going. Anybody been there? Where you're thinking, God, I want to go there now, but his sign is, well, that's great, but, the construction's closed on this route, so you got to go a different direction. And he's done that with so many different people in the Bible. And it's a tough pill to swallow because we all want things done right then and there. The last major point here, and then I just kind of want to just close with some prayer. I know we're kind of all... God's not going to give you what's in his hand until you let go of what's in yours. The issue isn't what's in God's hand. The issue is, do you trust God enough to let go of what's in your hand? And with that, there's perfect scripture from Matthew 6, 1 through 4. It says, Matthew chapter 16, verse 1 through 4, I'm sorry. It says, the Pharisees and Sadducees came to Jesus and tested him by asking him to show them a sign from heaven. He replied, when evening comes, you say it'll be fair weather for the sky is dry, and in the morning. Today it'll be stormy for the sky is red and overcast. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you can't interpret the signs of the time. A wicked and adulterous generation looks for signs, but none will be given except for the sign of Jonah. And then Jesus left them and walked away. So basically, Jesus told the Sadducees and Pharisees, you guys got to trust me. And then he just kind of dropped them out and walked away. Because what happened with these guys? He's not saying I'm never going to show you a sign, but these people are saying basically, like, we don't believe in you. We don't believe in you. We don't believe in you. And God's saying, Jesus is saying, I'm not going to waste my time constantly saying and showing you things. Sometimes you just have to actually trust me with what's going on. I mean, you can almost take it as a point that we are constantly asking God for signs of faith and for, waiting for the miracles to actually occur before we do something. If our hearts aren't right, then we can be tricked into just like Pharaoh was, by just having these magicians that come in and, because we're just constantly looking for the physical, looking for the physical, looking for the physical. Someone comes over to you and hands you this cup of coffee, and you take it as, oh, I was tired, so God gave me a cup of coffee. Well, it's a weird example, but sometimes if we're just constantly looking for, God show me this, God show me that, we're missing out on miracles that are right in front of us. and then we can be tricked into some stupidity, to be very honest with you. So, I mean, look outside. The sun's shining right now. There's flowers out there. We've got babies crawling around. We've got, roads that we can drive on. It's really no secret that there's miracles everywhere. But yet we continue to doubt God with different things that are going on all the time. We continue to doubt. We continue to search for that sign. So I read lots of scriptures, and some of them said, you shouldn't be looking for signs all the time. You shouldn't be doing this. And I'm here to say, it's perfectly natural and it's part of the process. You should absolutely ask God for what He wants you to do with His life and look for those signs. But when you go to a total standstill, and you don't realize the miracles that are going on around you, that's where when you're constantly saying, God, show me a sign, that's where it becomes bad. Because you're almost questioning, is God capable of doing this? And our God's capable of doing absolutely anything. So, 3 quick little takeaways. I'm going to tell one more story. I just finished a book about the Beam brothers. Does anybody know who they are? They're twin brothers. Test anybody's HGTV knowledge? Nobody? The Beam, I think I'm pronouncing it right. Yeah. So their show never came to fruition. They're twin brothers. They had a happening baseball career, and then that kind of panned out. So they turned into the real estate business of flipping foreclosed houses. Very, very faithful to God, and they got offered the show by HGTV. And but being Christians, they had stood for some different things. The Bible says that homosexuality is a sin. The Bible says abortion is wrong, and they stood for that. They said, I'm not going to come out and just allow that to happen. And HGTV kind of pushed back and like, whoa, wait a minute. You can't be saying that. We don't want to offend anybody. So what did these guys do? They prayed to God. They prayed to God continuously. They said, God, what do you want us to do? And they ended up walking away from the show. They said, you know what, we're willing to say, because they kept the story to the message, we're not saying we don't love you. That's not what we're saying at all. But we're just not going to sit there and say, we're in agreement with what you're doing. So they prayed to God. They ended up walking away from the show. They got a lot of national attention from it. So, headlines were able to be made. But the point is that, they were constantly in this battle asking for a sign. Do I leave professional baseball? Do we do this show? The guy said he actually had an email drafted as to, almost apologizing. And he prayed about it, and God was like, God put a sign as in another person was like, the rumble strip, like we talked about last week. It was like, that's not you. Why are you saying that stuff? And they walked away from the show, and they got a book deal, and they became better people from it. So the first thing we have to do, this is like a continuous thing. We need to ask God continuously, open your heart. Where do you want us to be? What do you want us to do? Then we need to listen to God. We need to try to cut out all the outside noise and actually listen to, God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to be? Where do you want this ministry to go? Do you want me to continue to sing? Do you want me just to sit back and enjoy it? We need to constantly be asking God that. And then the last part, this is where we all fall short. We talk about this every week. Is that when God shows us something, we've got to act on it. Because if we don't act on it, if there's a sign in the road that says, this road's closed in 5 miles, and we're like, nah, we don't need to worry about that, there'll be another way, and then we hit the 5-mile marker, and the traffic's backed up, because we didn't listen, what happens? We come to a standstill. So when God shows you a sign, listen to Him and act on it. So, I know that it was hard to concentrate today. Kids are very, very hyper. But I just pray that if we get nothing else out of it, that God will show us signs. Don't always rely on God to show us signs. But keep your heart open. Constantly pray. And listen and act. Dear Lord, thank you so much for today. Thank you for the time we had to fellowship you together, Lord. Thank you for friends and family that are going to gather and for the sunshine and for this building, God. We just pray that, at the right time, the right people will be here and we'll grow at the pace that you want us to grow at, God. And we just pray that, we just continue to grow in our worship each week. We are so thankful for Rich and Andrea and what they bring to the table, God. And we just pray that, we all just grow up just to honor you, Lord. And my biggest prayer today is that there's a sign out there, God, that we don't miss it. That, we just see it with flashing lights. This is what we want to do, Lord. Help us keep